Hi, I'm Paul, and I'd like to tell you a very interesting story about problem solving, which will help sales teams, leadership teams, and individual contributors to deal with some real world problems. The two skills I'm going to share with you in this story are asking better questions and using data to solve problems. So, once upon a time, this is a true story by the way, there was a village in Vietnam that had a high level of malnutrition for the kids. So there's like lots of kids underweight, skinny, just not healthy. Okay. Now, Vietnam invited lots of global experts to write research papers and give suggestions on how to alleviate this poverty, malnutrition, and unhealthy situation for the kids. They achieved nothing significant. Then one guy came to Vietnam as a researcher to solve this problem or to help with it. He did not have much resources in terms of cash, but he had an interesting approach to dealing with this problem. And I'll tell you about that now. So, what he did was first he collected data about these different Vietnam villages where the kids are undernourished and stuff. He went and visited these different villages. Um, and he discovered that the popular lines of thought about how to solve the problem was you should eliminate poverty. Obviously, that's not going to happen too easily. Build better aqueducts and sewerage systems for water sanitation to make the place a healthier village to live in. Once again, it takes a lot of time and money to achieve these kind of glorious objectives, and that wasn't available at the time. Or education. Educate all the villagers in some huge way so they know about how to raise their kids in a better way. Also, it's a challenge and takes a lot of money. So, when he was looking at the data of these undernourished kids in various villages in Vietnam, he asked a good question because that's one of the ultimate problem solving skills, asking better questions. He asked the question are there any kids in these poor villages that are a healthy weight? But they're still very poor. And his local assistant looked at the data and told him yes. And they found a village where the kids are healthy weight, even though they're just as poor as the neighboring villages. So he went there and said, let's go study these villagers and see what are they doing that's working so well. So when they went there, they figured out a few things after interviewing the villagers and observing them. One, different eating habits for the kids. Most villages in the country would feed their kids twice a day only. This village would feed their kids 4 times a day. And the reason that turned out to be a good thing is that because the kids were undernourished, they had smaller stomachs. So if you only feed them twice a day, their stomachs were actually not capable of digesting large amounts of food in one go. So feeding them 4 times a day turned out to be actually quite good and helped them to be healthier. Second, the mothers and fathers in this village, they used to actively feed their kids 4 times a day. Even if the kid is sick, Johnny, you've got to eat 4 times a day. And here's the food, like it or not, it's coming. A lot of the other villages had this habit of just leave the food in some communal pot in the house, for example, and they would leave it up to the kids to go eat their food twice a day. So they weren't actively kind of fed, which was one different with the eating habits. A third difference he observed was these parents took some green sweet potatoes that were traditionally regarded as a low-class food, not so great, but they took some of this green sweet potatoes and put it in the food for their kids, which turned out to be some source of protein and good stuff. And the fourth thing they were doing differently was they took from the rice paddies, they would collect some shrimp and little crabs, and they would chop them up and mix them with the rice that they're feeding their babies and stuff. And obviously the crab meat and that was a source of protein for the kids. So it had a positive influence on their diet and being healthier. So once he figured out these 4 or 5 simple things that this village is doing differently to the other villages in Vietnam, he basically did a pilot project and got like 10 other nearby villages and got them together in groups of like 10 families at a time and got them to basically bring some crabs, bring some shrimp, bring some sweet potatoes, bring the rice. We're going to cook the food together, and then you're going to go feed all your kids. Fantastic. So basically, you got them involved with learning the new behavior and seeing for themselves how it worked. He didn't just give them some training course about nutrition and how to take care of your kids, because knowledge doesn't change behavior usually. You need to really get your hands dirty with it to understand it. So after he did this and kept cloning it, this is kind of called copying success. Find out what's working well and copy it is basically the approach he took. And it worked like a bomb. It worked really well. Um, After 6 months of copying success in this way, uh, the village kids in different places, their nutritional rate kind of improved by 65%. 65%, that's amazing. They then copied this approach to about 2.2 million other kids in various villages. 2.2 million kids benefited from asking better questions, from analyzing the data with this kind of frame in mind. It's really a beautiful story about how some real world results manifested from this problem solving approach. Now, just to remind you, too often we focus too much with problem solving in your sales team, in your management team, between departments. Too often we focus on what's the root cause of the problem, and then we look at identifying the problem very clearly, and then we kind of focus our solution generation on the problem a bit too much. So sometimes that works very well in business, as we know. If you have a nuclear power plant and you've got some problem once a month there happening, then yes, identify it, figure out how to sort out that problem, otherwise things will blow up. But sometimes you really need to step back and change your paradigm, change the frame at which you look at things, and ask yourself, what is working well in our team? What's working well with our approach? What do our customers like about doing business with us? What do they like about our products? If you ask these kind of positively framed questions, which we call bright spots, look for the bright spots. Look for the bright spots, and then you can have a different way to approach things. Okay, so this is my hopefully inspiring story to any teams out there and how to deal with problems they're dealing with. So after this kind of story, which is kind of a lead in for the bright spots philosophy of problem solving, next we'll put the participants in, say, groups of 5, and we'll ask them to use a flip chart, or it could be a whiteboard if you're in a Zoom breakout room, and try to list what things are going well in your department, or maybe if you're interested in improving your products, let's look at what's working well with our products. What is working well with how the IT department collaborates with the finance department. Maybe they don't have a great relationship right now, but before we look at solving the problems between our two departments, or between us and our customers, or changing the difficult relationship with our suppliers, before we look at the root cause analysis, the problem-solving mindset, let's just take a moment, step back, and make a list of what is working well at the moment with us and these guys. And the same thing for evaluating yourself as a salesperson or a manager. What is working well with your management style? Have a look at it. What is your team doing well? And ask yourself, can we do even more of this thing that's working well? So what's working well and how can we do it even more is a simple idea. Okay, now we'll go into an activity where the different groups are going to cook up some examples of this, and later we'll get a chance to share some of these bright spot stories from your own experience with each other and see how we can inspire each other. Okay, I'm Paul. I'm a leadership facilitator, and it was nice sharing this with you. Take care. Bye.